The moon was full and shining bright, and there I was in the heat of the night. I found this place I'd like to go, even though it's far from home. It all made sense as I watched the crowd, the things I heard. This place was wild. The lights were low, people everywhere, sounds of love screaming through the air. It was there I fell in love. It was there I found my passion flowing, and far from my mind was the world I left behind. I used to think how it would be to find someone who needed me, and it was there my dream came true, 'cause it was there that I met you. So many.
Well, good evening and welcome back to Memories of a Musician. I'm your host, Vito DeSalvo. Tonight, we have another great program for you featuring two brothers, Danny and Steve Capuzzi. Both of these fellows were students of mine at some point at the West Mifflin area high school. And so proud of them. They went on, both went on to perform with the Duquesne University Tamburitzans, which is a very prestigious group. And, just to give you, I'm going to give you more background as we go and read their bios and things like that. But I wanted to play, there's a little bit of an audio thing going on right here. This is their band. And, you can hear the music here. Although their last name is Capuzzi, which is an Italian name. Of course, I know their whole family, and their father was an administrator at the West Mifflin School District as well. But although their name is Italian, I think it's fair to say that they really adopted more so the culture of their mother's family, which is Serbian, and the music, of course, and the entire culture. And both boys, and by the way, they have two sisters. Milena, I taught as well. She was also a Duquesne Tamburitzan, and their younger sister, Sonia, I did not teach, but I knew who she was. And she was also a member of the Tamburitzan. So I want to get you started, I want to play a little video that's going to just kind of give you a sense of what we're in for here. Totally, again, we've had a lot of different guests, and Danny and Steve are my 29th episode. And so all of these guests are different, with different music and different styles, different genre, but they're all musicians who have been involved most of their lives with the music. And the whole idea here is for them to tell their story, their journey in the music industry. And so that's what we're going to do. But I'm going to play this just to give you a little sense here.
Ove ruže male, samo srcu moga sna.
There you go. There you go. Oh, this is great. Really interesting, interesting music. And I was involved in, of course, my culture was Italian music, but what's interesting is I don't think I ever ran into or came across an Italian song that was in an odd meter. Everything was either a waltz, a mazurka's a waltz, a little brighter. The tarantellas a 6/8 and 2. I mean, the tangos. Everything was pretty straight. When you get to Eastern Europe and you get to even Greece, you get to these odd meters with the music with odd meters, which is really interesting and makes the whole thing. And then the dance becomes very interesting as well. We're going to talk about that too a little bit later. So let me read a little bit about Danny Capuzzi. And by the way, when you saw those videos, the last two videos, you saw Steve singing on a song, and then you saw Danny singing, and Danny was playing violin at that one point too. So, they're multi-instrumentalists and also vocalists, and I'm sure they dance too, because if you're in the Tamburitzans, you have to do everything. Danny Capuzzi lives in Oakland, Michigan, with his wife Stephanie and their two sons. He works as a pharmacist for Walgreens and is a proud graduate of Duquesne University, where he earned both his undergraduate and pharmacy degrees. While at Duquesne, Danny earned a scholarship and performed with the Duquesne University Tamburitzans, traveling across the continental United States to share traditional Eastern European music and dance. Danny's deep love for Serbian music was inspired by his grandfather and mentor. Now I'm probably going to pronounce things wrong here. Dragan Danny Kukic, his namesake. From a young age, Danny treasured the time he spent learning and playing music alongside his grandfather. These moments not only shaped his musical journey, but also strengthened his connection to his Serbian heritage, something he takes great pride in. Danny is devoted to preserving and celebrating the music of his ancestors. He plays a variety of traditional string instruments and is currently focused on the electric violin, though he recently added a bouzouki to his collection. I'm going to have to ask him about that. I thought the bouzouki was a Greek instrument. We're going to ask him. Over the years, he has performed in orchestras, shared the stage with his brother, and continues to enjoy making music with family and friends. He also sings in his church choir, where he has occasionally assisted with directing and finds joy in passing down his love of music and culture to his sons. Whether he's watching them on the football field or golf course or encouraging their own musical curiosity, Danny remains rooted in family tradition and the rhythms of his heritage. Now we're going to read a little bit about his brother Steve Capuzzi. Lives in Upper St. Clair, Pennsylvania, with his wife Natasha and their two children, Nicolina, who's 11, and Philippe, who's 8. Maybe pronounced Philip, but Philippe, it looks like Philippe to me, but Philip, 8. He serves as a national account director for specialty pharmacy at Boehringer Ingelheim. Steve earned his Doctor of Pharmacy from Duquesne University and completed his MBA at Robert Morris University in 2022. While at Duquesne, he was awarded a scholarship to perform with the renowned Duquesne University Tamburitzans. Steve's deep love for Serbian music was inspired by his grandfather and mentor, Dragan Danny Kukic. He began accordion lessons at a young age under his grandfather's guidance and later studied with several respected Pittsburgh area musicians, including Donna Jacobs. I knew Donna. She studied with the same accordion teacher I did, by the way. The late Joe Zarnich, and I knew Joe Zarnich very well. When I was a kid, I played in an accordion band. It was accordion student teacher band, and he was the first chair, and I sat right next to him. Joe Zorn is a terrific accordionist, and Vuk and Vladeta Bata Kanda of Belgrade, Serbia. That's amazing. In addition to the accordion, Steve developed a passion for the upright bass, an instrument he was first introduced to through the West Mifflin Area School District. Inspired by its role in Serbian and Tamburica orchestras, he studied under Fred Danchenko, both in school and privately. A cherished gift from his grandfather, a bass guitar, accompanied him for over 30 years until he recently upgraded to a new one. Over the past 3 decades, Steve has performed in 3 bands, always sharing the stage with his brother Danny. Steve is dedicated to passing on his musical heritage to the next generation. For over 10 years, he has directed his church's Serbian folklore group, proudly incorporating his daughter's violin talents and his son's growing skills on the accordion. He finds great joy in nurturing their connection to Serbian music, language, and culture. Whether performing in orchestras, leading youth in folklore, or reminiscing about his high school musical days, Steve has always loved the stage. Yet his favorite setting remains the most intimate, gathered around the dining room table, playing song after song with family and friends. Bravo, Steve. Bravo, Danny. And this is a little biography of the Capuzzi brothers, 30 years of music and brotherhood. For over 3 decades, the Capuzzi brothers have been captivating audiences with their blend of talent and brotherhood. Growing up in a home filled with the sounds of Serbian folk music, continental and international music, the 2 brothers picked up their instruments as kids, one with a guitar, the other behind a bass and accordion, and never looked back. What began in their grandfather's living room in local church functions grew into a lifelong collaboration rooted in shared memories, creative chemistry, and an unspoken musical language only siblings could understand. Over the years, their appreciation for authentic Serbian style has evolved, drawing from their grandfather's fundamentals, learning and speaking the language, and yet always retaining the signature energy that comes from playing side by side for now a lifetime. From intimate acoustic sets to high-energy festival stages, the Capuzzi brothers have earned respect amongst their folk musician colleagues for decades. Now celebrating 30 years of making music together, the Capuzzi brothers continue to enjoy performing side by side. And there you have it. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to welcome to the stage the Capuzzi brothers. There's Danny, and there is Steve. How you doing, fellas?
Good evening, Vito.
Good evening. It's great to see you.
Good evening, Vito.
Yeah.
What an introduction. We're honored.
Oh, thank you. Well, no problem. I mean, you know what? The only thing I got to say is that every once in a while, especially those playing accordion, they should learn a couple of nice Neapolitan songs on the accordion. It'd just be handy to have once in a while, you know.
Good feedback.
I love your
duly noted, Vito.
music. I do. But, you know, of course, I grew up just like you did. Now, my grandfather was not my influence. He was not a musician. And I didn't know my other grandfather was gone well before my parents even got married. But, you know, it's interesting because my father was a violinist, and he helped me through probably the first 8 years that I was studying accordion. And he knew music. He couldn't play the accordion, but he knew music. And he sure as heck made me put my nose to the grindstone, so to speak. You know what I mean? There was no option.
Yeah.
You know.
Hey, that's the way to learn, Vito.
Yeah, and I learned to love, just like you guys love your culture and the music. And I love that part about sitting around the table and singing. I mean, we did that too for years. Even in the car with the kids, when we would drive places, we'd be singing Italian songs. And I mean, that's just the greatest, It's just, I don't know how to describe it, but it's just a wonderful experience for kids, for us, everybody.
Absolutely. And
So you guys really grew up together. What is your age difference? How many years apart are you?
so we're 2.5 years.
2.5.
Between us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
Year.
Close in age. I
Yeah.
couldn't remember, based on when you graduated and things like that. I have no clue.
So as far as that, I was actually a freshman at West Mifflin area whenever Danny was a senior. So he graduated 96. I graduated in 1999. So
well, I have this picture of the two of you right there.
Yes.
That's a great picture.
That's a great picture. That's I want to, that was us actually at our home in Mifflin Hills, which was a subdivision in West Mifflin. And I was thinking about this, Vito. Mifflin Hills. I always recall seeing your music back in the day, saying Mifflin Hills Music Company. So I meant to ask you about that. As far as how did that name originate? I knew there were some other musicians that were within that neighborhood. There was a jazz trombonist, I believe, that lived in the plan. And then there was our friend Jeremy Stillwagon's father. He played, he played in the River City Brass Band. He was also in Mifflin Hills. But getting back to the picture, that is taken at Mifflin Hills. And,
well, believe it or not, just so you know, in 1977, I started Mifflin Hills Music Company. And where I got that name was when you would drive down 885, there was a sign that said Mifflin Hills. And that was your plan where you lived up in that subdivision there. And that is exactly where I got the name for the company. I didn't want to call it West Mifflin Music, but when I saw that, I thought, I like that, Mifflin Hills Music. And it's a publishing company today. It's strictly a publishing company, but I still have that company, Mifflin Hills Music. So now Mifflin Hills Music Publishing LLC. But I still have that company.
I wanted to ask you if you still utilize it. That's great. And get back to your previous comment about, learning some Italian songs. I always recall that on the Italian book you gave me, and Solo per te. I still dust that one off. You've given me inspiration and challenge accepted to, polish on that one as well as the Italian. And I vividly remember that Mifflin Hills Music Company publishing stamp on it. So
sure. Yeah. The Mifflin Hills Music owned all the copyrights for all of that, all of my original music. And Solo per te, I had written for, I believe, my second album, which was 1989, the Compati album. So that's good. That's all great. And go ahead, tell us a little bit more about what inspired you guys to. And I read it in your bio so many times about your grandfather, and I got to tell
Steve, you,
this is a little bit of a disappointment for me because I'm a grandfather. I have 8 grandchildren, and I don't seem to get any of them to stick with music. I don't know. It's just, but it is what it is, So tell us about your beginnings. Go ahead.
Vito, just segue in from this picture. Steve and I, we just grew up together, being brothers together, doing pretty much everything together, from bunk beds to buddies to altar boys. We were junior tambouristans together. We were even pole vaulters in high school, bandmates, and then we went on to be pharmacists together. So it's a lifelong thing. And we are 2 years apart. And I enjoyed that age bracket between us so much that I decided to have my 2 boys in that same age bracket. So now my 2 sons, Eli and Peter, are 2 years apart. They are 10 and 12. And I just think it really forms a bond. It's really fascinating. And our roots with everything. Well, first I want to say, Vito, thank you for having us. We are absolutely honored when we see these old pictures and we talk about Mifflin Hills Music Company. And and all of this. You were right there. You were our teacher. You were behind. I want to say this throughout the program. We are amazed at what you were doing behind the scenes. We knew you as Mr. D, our music teacher. You were recording after you were done with school. You were doing things with We Three. You were traveling. I mean, all this is coming to light, and pretty much my jaw is like every episode that I watch, and the fantastic guests that you have on your show. I mean, just look at last week, the Blue Man Group composer. You have so many amazing connections. I've been so enthralled with your program. Thank you for having us. I love the one on the Sicilian tenors. Those guys were an absolute hoot, and I would love to see them live sometime. They just seem like a blast, not only on the stage but privately
We're trying
too.
to get them into Pittsburgh. They are great. They're great, and I enjoyed working with them for about 7 years as their music director.
Oh wow! And so we're just honored, very much so. I wish we could claim accolades to be as professional as some of the. We're honored to be on your show so much, and just music really is our passion. And despite the fact that Steve and I are pharmacists behind the scenes, it is in our heart. It is drilled in our heart from day one. And talking about in our opening, our Jedel, Danny Kukic. He was born actually in 1919. So he was born on the kitchen table in Rankin, Pennsylvania. Our great Bubba came across on the Lusitania. And from history buffs that are out there, the Lusitania was bombed on the way back.
Yeah.
And so he started studying at the Wurlitzer School of Music under Max Adkins and Victor Lawrence. And here's the cool thing that we love hearing about Jedel. Him and Joe Negri were guitar students together under Victor Lawrence. And that's when they were first forming and everything. And even if I hope Joe's watching, I want to say hello from our family and everything. Where Jedel started, he started to be in the Stanley Theater Orchestra, and that was some of his beginnings. And he even got some offers with some big bands to play. I heard, I remember him telling me about Tommy Dorsey and some of these other ones, but he turned it down. Why? Because Pittsburgh had its steel mills going. Sure. Three shifts. His orchestra, his Tamburitza orchestra, would play 6 nights a week. So the immigrants that would come across on Ellis Island and things, they were there and they were craving the music of former Yugoslavia, from Serbia, from Hrvatska, from every, and for his band to do that some nights. But here's the cool thing: his band was actually able to play the hits of the day as well, because the music was a little simpler than it is today, and we can all agree to that.
Yeah, go ahead. Can I show this picture?
Please. That's his band. That's the band that played in the 40s and 50s and through and everything, and played 6 nights a week. And
he's on the right-hand side.
This is Jedel off the right-hand side, off the microphone on the one with the fancy tie with the lightning bolt there.
Yeah. So he's on the far right.
That's correct.
Far right. Yep.
Okay. Wow. And all were they all? So you mentioned he was born in 1919. My father was born in 1918. But I want to know: were all of these guys immigrants? Did they all come from Serbia, or from that?
No, this is really the time where it was it was under the regime of former Yugoslavia, where it was under and they wouldn't allow a lot of foreign musicians to come over, and so this allowed the American-born Serbian musician to prosper and really go. So he found musicians that were in Pittsburgh that could play, that had a connection, that they were either maybe sometime first or second generation. And it really powerhoused the American Serbs to play music in this country all the way through the demise of former Yugoslavia and stuff. So it was really kind of interesting for him to see that. And so, that was his buddies, and they really, really played a lot. And they all the stories and everything. I wish I could go back in time. I wish there was a time machine. that you could just go and sit back with and hear stuff.
I understand that, because even when, and I was on the tail end of all that, but even with my band, when we were at the peak and we were doing, 100 to 120 gigs a year, and, all over the tri-state area and then some. And, it was just like people, were thirsty for the music, and live and dance music and live, that's just what it was back then, so different than today for sure. Right.
I really think people really enjoyed maybe live music more in that generation more than today.
Yeah, I agree.
Something that we'll say with the band, and later, the younger kids, they'll listen to our band, and we'll play a cover song from Serbian. And I remember one kid coming up to me and saying, "Hey, you don't sound like the recording. Why don't you sound like?" Well, that's the art of it. You know what I mean? Sure, we're not exactly like the recording, but and I feel like, I don't want to sound like an old man here, but that appreciate live music, and it's something art.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I knew that was the beginning of the end with my band, and we were in business for 49 years, but the beginning of the end was when maybe a bride would say to me, we want this particular song, but we want that artist that sang it. We want them singing it. So, I said, we could play the recording, my band would always learn the song and we'd have our own little take on it, one way or the other. And everybody loved it. But there became a point where this new generation, whenever that was, in probably in the, I'd say in the late 90s, it started. And but they wanted to hear, Luther Vandross singing Here Now, but okay. So we played the recording. And then before you know it, we were playing like 3 or 4 recordings. And then, it just kept going more and more. And we got to a point where we 3 was playing like cocktail and dinner hour and maybe a few special dances. And then the DJ took over, and we had a DJ take over, for the young kids. So we could accommodate the parents who wanted live music, their music, right, and their ethnic music, and then the kids who wanted their music, so it just all swung. But I just, I loved those days when you could stand up on stage and play and watch this crowd having a ball dancing, right? There's nothing like it.
Just and we feel the word towards the end of it, but the stories of our Jedel telling us and our grandfather, those days where people loved it. Bars were 3 deep and this and that. And, before I don't say anything else about my grandfather, if that's okay, Vito, I found this record. I couldn't convert it. And I borrowed a record player from my next door neighbor here. I have a 45 record with the little hole in the middle, and of Jedel and Joe Negri playing on a song called Porto Bay Tonto Blue. They made a 45 record, and it's here. And I got it here. Can I play a little bit of it? Because you'll hear the sound of the tamburizza.
Yeah, go ahead.
And then you'll hear Joe's guitar.
Yeah. Joe just turned 97 a few last week.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
I would see him at Duquesne periodically whenever we were at Duquesne Detail.
He taught there, yeah.
Yeah.
He was actually a fan of me three. Okay, listen.
Hopefully you can hear it and it's coming through.
So that's Joe playing guitar right now.
That is very cool.
Isn't that kind of cool?
Yeah. That's awesome. And I have this picture here too I want to show because it shows some more of your grandfather and grandson there playing. And this was in Pittsburgh.
In the Allegheny report where they featured an article about me and Steve both. That's a picture of me learning from Jedel there. And then when I was in the Duquesne Tamburitzans, they featured this. They found me at Duquesne to do this article, and I thought it was really kind of interesting. And it tells the story of a lot of the musical tradition, just like the article says.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it really, we love it. We think such highly of Jeddo, and I miss him so dearly.
So, Steve, you were going to tell us a little bit about the musical upbringing with the junior Tamburitzins and things like that, huh?
Absolutely, yes. So
I want to hear this because
absolutely. So Danny and I, as we've said, we paid the road was paved by our grandfather as establishing Tamburitzins, but there was also a great thing. And recently we learned, you were a part of this too, Vito, is the junior Tamburitzins of the Pittsburgh area. They had a various amount of junior groups within the area. And it was almost like akin to how minor league baseball has these farm leagues to kind of raise the players to, play in the pros someday. So we were a part of 2 different junior groups growing up. Duquesne Juniors, which was affiliated with the CFU, or the Croatian Fraternal Union. And we were also a part of our church's group, which was St. Nicholas Serbian Orthodox Tamburitzins out of Monroeville, Pennsylvania. So 2 groups at the time. And the third one came in the summertime, which was comprised of youth from Serbian Orthodox churches within 7 or 8 different Serbian Orthodox churches in greater Pittsburgh. So that was only a summer program, but that one was actually led by our aunt, Martha Kokich-Steen, as well as the dance choreographer, from West Mifflin area schools, is Donna Kresovich-Brnesovich. So we were quite busy. The first group, Monroeville, our church group, practiced Monday nights. Duquesne Juniors was Wednesday nights, and then Fridays was Ensemble Serbia, and that was the summer group. And I think what was most memorable, aside from learning and getting the foundations, was the later years. Whenever we were summer nights practicing on Hartman Street and St. Sava's and McKeesport for Ensemble Serbia, itching to finish up dance practice, to run down to the American Serbian Club in Southside to hear bands playing. And sometimes it was funny because our band actually played too. And we're telling the instructors, like, hey, we got to go. Like, let's go. We got to wrap this up because we got to set up and do this. So, it was, as far as the upbringing, it was really fun because we learned the foundations. We learned the musical theory. We learned how to play the music. We learned how to sing the music. We had exposure to the language, to the culture, to how to behave in these cultural settings. And then lastly, the reward was, we got to party and having our own band and playing at these events. And I think that is, full circle. And, Danny, you're right. And Vito, you're right about saying, and towards the 90s, things have changed. But, we also would go to our church camps every summer and have similar, cultural experiences, religious, cultural, language, folklore, everything. So now I got back last week. I was up there, and Danny's family was up there. It's near Erie, Pennsylvania. And we partook in a week of being with our children. This time, instead of being campers, obviously, we were more so like chaperones and parents that helped volunteer at the camp, and that's St. Sava Camp. So in saying that, it's alive and well, and the children are involved in the same things.
That's excellent. And it's fair to say that you guys, and you were lucky in a way, that you were immersed in this from a very early age and exposed. Exposures means so much. Some kids just don't get exposed to things, especially art and culture,
Vito, this, as much as we were being exposed on our own behind with our family, I have to go back and talk about the West Mifflin Area School District music program, which you and the late Evan Broman and Hansack, Fred Danchenko, Bob Graham, you guys were top notch, head and shoulders above everything. Where I look back and starting, it was a 4th grade music program that was during the summer.
Yeah,
where you guys as music teachers came and we went to the middle school to start our music lessons under the late Evan Broman. And it was just unbelievable. And I have to just commend you guys for putting your music program head and shoulders above other districts, other things. We could talk about what we were getting behind the scenes with our family in this, but you only enhanced it. It was like a synergistic approach of 1 + 1 = 3. You know what I mean? Where really interesting. I hats off to you guys then. And you know, I have phenomenal memories of West Mifflin High School.
I share those same memories too. And that meant so much. I mean, you guys were teachers. Ask any teacher what the best part about being a teacher is, and they say June, July, and August. But you gentlemen were up in that school, you know, in that hot school without air conditioning at the time.
Yep.
You know, teaching music every day from maybe 8:30 in the morning until 12 by the time you made it through all the classes. So yeah, thank you so much.
You know, Vito, I mentioned the late Evan Broman. I have to tell this story, and one day my son's maybe going to watch this, and you know, I haven't told him this story, but my dad, Ace, was teaching at Duquesne City School at the time, and he was coaching football and basketball, and he really, really wanted me to go out for the 7th grade football team. Okay, so I go. And I was a little reluctant. I said, all right, Dad, I'll go out. You know, first day I walk on the field and there's the coach over there. And he's, hey, Capuzzi, what are you dressed like that for? What are you here for? You need a helmet. You need your shoulder pads. You need your cleats. We'll get you a cup. You get down in that locker room. I said, whoa, coach. I'm just kind of just feeling this out for a little bit. I'm not really sure if I'm doing this. And the coach went kind of buck on me. He went, what are you talking about? You're here for football, son. You get in that locker room and get up there and you get. And I like cover my head and I'm walking down because you walked off the field there and then the band room was right there. And I start to get to the edge of the steps and there's the late Evan Broman there. And my hands like this. And he says, I said 2 words. I didn't even finish the story. And Mr. Broman said, come on, Danny, I'll drive you home.
He understood.
He understood, and it was just fascinating, you know. And but great memories of West Mifflin. Thank you guys for being there for us, not just us, all of us, you know. And PMEA, I remember going to choir and being a tenor that went on to the state choir and things under Fred Danchenko and stuff. And it was pretty cool, you know.
We were like, we had a good department of teachers, and everybody put the kids first. That's the main thing.
And we sure did. And, you know, I wouldn't go any further without talking about the great musicals that you directed and everything. Oh. And you remember The Princess and the Pea, where I played the tambura to start as the minstrel. Yeah. And Steve did some of those things.
I have a couple pictures. I have this one here.
Oh, yeah. That's
Yep. That's a great one there. And that's me me and Danny, and then Brock Belich. Tamburitzin, Duquesne Tamburitzin.
Another West Mifflin student that went on to the Tamburitzins too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Music teacher.
That was an international fair that was sponsored by the ACE program and Donna Bernesevich.
Okay.
And I remember Donna, you know, coming up to me at Duquesne Junior practice on the Wednesday night that I spoke of. And I was in 6th grade at the time. And she had told me, you know, what I'm sure every junior high kid wants to hear. She said, Stevie, I'd really like it if you play accordion Serbian songs in front of your whole middle school. Mm-hmm. You know, and I was like horrified at this. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is gonna be terrible, you know. But you know, that was it was a really good learning experience. And I was thinking about that, you know, as we sent in that picture, Vito. That picture that helped us celebrate our cultures. And, you know, Danny and I, our surname is Italian, as you spoke of before. You know, people had no idea about us, you know, being, you know, in this Tamburitzin, the Serbian culture, you know. So it was a time to showcase this. We also did a dance that evening as well, and then there was food to share that was made by our mothers and our babas. So it's an excellent thing, and like I said, it was a great opportunity for us to share our culture, especially those that you wouldn't know that they're Serbian. Where I remember another boy, he was involved in the program too, Jonathan Urkel. He was of Syrian culture. And he got to share his Syrian culture in that ACE program that we did back in
I had Jonathan as a student too, great kid.
Yeah.
So you mentioned about the musicals, and I have this picture. This is funny. This must be like an after the musical cast party or something.
This is a cast party, and
Mr. Fred Danchenko right in the front.
That's right.
I assume at that point he was probably conducting. I conducted the shows when I was the orchestra director, probably eight of them or 8 or 9 of them. And then when I brought Mr. Danchenko up to the high school to do the orchestra, then he conducted the shows after that up until the time that he retired. And I was, of course, the head of the department. So I was still, so to speak, the executive producer of the musical. So I controlled, the whole process. And all these students in here, and Sharon Lawrence was the teacher right next to me on the end, on the far left. Yep. And Sharon was, she did the costumes for the musical. She was a home ec teacher and did the costumes. And I recognized Jenny Keller on the far right.
We went to Tamburitson's. She went on to do King
I'm not sure about the other kids though. I don't know.
I think that is, for clarity, I think that's the class of 1996 senior class.
Yeah, and that's when we did Princess and the Pea, and that was at our cast party.
So that was all the seniors that were involved. Well, not all of them, but I guess the ones that got in that picture at G&K Hall.
Okay.
And Jenny Keller and myself went to Duquesne Tamburitson's. And that's Danny D'Antonio in the back there. That's Jim Hintz there, Karen Baum, and I believe her name was Becky Schock was in that picture there. And you and
Dan D'Antonio, he's a priest now.
Yes,
Father Antonio. Yeah.
Our dad and his dad grew up together in Glassport, PA, and everything.
That's interesting. It's great looking at these old pictures and trying to figure out who's who. Sometimes.
You know what I remember from the musicals too, Vito, was fantastic. And one of your guests on the show was Ed Dukestein, was one of your early, and he had the lavaliers and the microphones, and we thought we were in the big leagues. Oh, here's your microphone. Here's this and that. It was like our introduction to wow, this is really cool.
To that effect too, I remember, Vito, you made us go to Century 3 Mall one year and rent tuxedos for an orchestra concert. So to Danny's point, it was like another level. West Mifflin area music program just brought that level of professionalism, to make all the gentlemen within the orchestra go to Century 3 Mall, Tuxedo Junction, and rent a tuxedo for the spring or for the winter concert. It was just another level. Like Danny said, we had the best kind of gear. We looked great. It almost didn't matter how we sounded. We did sound good, thanks to you and the esteemed, teachers. But I think it just made it full circle in bringing that professionalism to West Mifflin area.
That's good. Thank you. Yeah, I think it was a lot of fun. It was always fun working with you kids, and that's the thing that if I missed anything about teaching, that's the kids.
Hey Vito, I got one more that kind of hit me when we were doing those musicals. I had another buddy that was there at this time, Paul Mognac, and him and we cooked up this plan together that we were going to go see Vito. We felt like it was almost like a Godfather kind of we're going to ask you, between me or Paul or myself, we wanted to ask Gina to the prom. And we went in and asked you. We were nervous, like Luca Brasi in the Godfather. We were scared. And I remember your answer: neither one of you.
Not a chance.
That was great. Gina's watching. I don't know if she knows that story.
I think so, but she'll
neither one of you.
Having a daughter. I would answer the same way.
Yeah,
Of course.
we thought it was a great idea.
That's funny.
You
Yeah.
didn't think so.
But what you had said about Ed Dukestein, and West Mifflin, our high school, we had a huge auditorium. I mean, 1,200, I think it was 1,284 seats in that auditorium. So it was huge. And, to put a musical on and not have sound reinforcement, it just didn't make sense there. And especially then you have the orchestra in the pit. And I was able to have a large orchestra because I had a large pit. And I had it was actually part of the curriculum that the orchestra would play for the musical. And so, it was an interesting thing, but yeah. And I had to go outside the district to hire, of course, Ed Dukestein was the engineer for We3 at the time. And I think to this day, Tim Milko still does the sound, Tim was also affiliated, was part of We3 as a sound engineer and also as a guitarist and vocalist.
We remember when you snuck some ringers in that orchestra too. I remember
a few.
A few.
Every now and then, because you know how it is in education.
Right.
One year you have a strong, brass section. Next year it's weak. Next year you have a strong woodwind section, or it changes every year. That's why that's education. And so if we had an important musical part that had to be played and we didn't have a strong player, I'd reach out to get somebody to come in and help. And it was a good experience for the students because it was almost like a side by side. Now you're hearing a professional play and you're learning, well, this is how it's supposed to sound, right?
Right.
So it's a good experience, a good learning experience for students. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's why the Pittsburgh Symphony has a side-by-side concert every year with students, So now I wanted to play one more video right now, just to break up the talk here with a little music. I'm going to play another video, and I just love the fact that, especially with the Serbian music, the Italian music is when the dance part, if you're doing tangos or waltzes or mazurkas, and maybe there's a song which is a song type called a quadrilla, which is kind of like a square dance, okay? Italian version. And then of course the tarantellas, you would have the groups dancing together. But when you guys have these line dances and people dancing I just think that's just so remarkable to see that. And in my life, my first accordion teacher was Greek, and I learned a lot of Greek music when I was younger, and besides the Italian, and I remember playing Greek weddings where only the guys would dance, not even the women, just the men would dance, and it was pretty interesting. But let me play this video. Let's listen to some more of the Capuzzi brothers. Here we go. last video was obviously a festival.
That was,
And of course, I played a ton of Italian festivals, but and it was interesting to see, no matter, they'll find a space to dance no matter where it is, right?
Yeah.
that one was in Detroit. So that one was just, about a year and a half ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a big festival.
You know
It
what?
was, it was a basketball tournament.
I played the Italian festival a couple times in Detroit. I think it was called Freedom Hill. Does that sound
Oh yeah, Freedom Hill. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I went to an event called Cigars and Cars up there. It was
Yeah.
tremendous. Yeah, that's a great facility. Oh man.
But great. That sound, great music, and it's fun to see them dancing. So let's talk about. I want to talk about you guys going to. Now you left high school,
Yep.
and you're going to Duquesne University for pharmacy as a major, both of you, and then. Of course, you were traveling with the Tamburitsans. And so, but let me, this picture here. Tell us about this.
This is right at the end where we're playing in high school and things, and where Jedel was really playing his Gibson L5 there, and we would get together as family. And really, that's Martha Kokich that taught the strings with, and we would do things like family and things, and that's where we were incorporating Steve to really get hone some of his chops on accordion there, while we had two other melody instruments going at the same time, and it was Jedel's kind of introduction to start playing in front of people live, which is an art that we feed on, and we love it, because that makes you, that gives you the energy to keep, going. So yeah, that was us. And then it kind of led to us going to Duquesne University, where we, as much as we had music passion in our hearts and everything, we were led down a road to say, try, something else, just so because you could, Danny, I remember them telling me you could do this on the weekends, and you could play and you could teach and this and that, but maybe there's something else that will help you pay your bills one day when you have a family and things like that. And no, it's just the direction that they kind of led us, and it was kind of unique. And let Steve take it a little bit of our journey into the world of pharmacy, because I owe everything to Steve, because I started in HR as a tambourist, and because all the rest of the guys in the ensemble were
before you say that, Steve, let me show one more picture. I think this is an amazing picture here.
Oh yeah, this is when I was in the tambourist, and that's me in the corner, and Jenny Keller's in there with me, and we went to Fred Rogers' studio. There in Oakland, and it was fascinating. I got his autograph, and I sat with. It was pretty cool. Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, and all the little props and things that we saw. It was like we were like little kids coming to life, and it was cool that we got this picture with him.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so let me go back to Steve and go ahead. You're going to talk about it. Let me just say, because in the beginning of my career as a teacher, if I found a student that had just a little bit of talent, I would push and push and push that student to go into music and major in music, and push them in that direction. And then, after I learned what I learned in life and things, and the way things were going in the world with education and things, then I came to a point where I almost discouraged kids to go into music, and said, just like you were guided, say, you know what? If there's anything else in life that you could imagine yourself doing, do that, because music can always be an avocation. There's a lot of ways to play music on, without it having to put the bread on your table, right? Yeah. And so that was my new mantra at probably the last half of my career as a teacher, and I didn't push. And my feeling was if a kid was so passionate about music that-that's the only thing they were going to do, they're going to end up there, no matter what I say, no matter what their parents say, they're going to end up there, right? Yeah. So be it, and that's the way things really worked out. So go ahead, Steve.
So I agree with you on that totally, Vito. And I'd say I always like the math and sciences. you know, and I found inspiration again through the West Mifflin Area School District, having some great science teachers, some math teachers. But I think my biggest inspiration for looking at pharmacy was mine and Danny's uncle, Mike Muselin. He was actually a pharmacist, as well as, and this was our great uncle. He was married to our great aunt, Danny Kukich's wife, Ann Kukich. Her sister, Mary Balta, was married to Mike, and both of them were actually pharmacists. And furthermore, Mary Balta was one of the first, she was amongst the first ladies to graduate from Duquesne University School of Pharmacy. So she was a pharmacist, and our Uncle Mike was a pharmacist. And I specifically remember, you know, I might have been in I might have been in about 7th grade. Uncle Mike, he went on this, it was like a retreat, or almost like you know, helping out with Medicine Without Borders. And he went to Russia. And then later during the Bosnian conflict, he actually helped administer medication and supplies to war-torn Bosnia. So I found this was great inspiration. I was like, wow, I want to do something to help people. And, you know, our Uncle Mike and our Aunt Mary gave us that inspiration into going into pharmacy. So the funny thing was, it was tough though, going for sciences and maths and trying to do the Tamburitzin route as well. Trying to be, you know, as best musicians that we can, you know, and even to this day, you know, in our age, you know, I specifically see those that went into music and did music school. Yeah, they kind of have a leg up on us, you know, side musicians, kind of, you know. I don't really consider ourselves professional musicians.
Oh, I do.
Everyone always says, oh yeah, I do too. But I think the funniest part about it is I recall in pharmacy school having a teacher. We always had mentors, and they would, you know, track our pharmacy progress. And he's like, yeah, so, you know, do you really like this pharmacy thing? And one time I caught him completely off guard. I said, you know what? I really don't like this pharmacy thing. I have a band. My brother has a band. At the time I had long hair. You know, I was like, I'm just doing this pharmacy thing until my band hits it big. And I know we're going to hit it big. And that professor just looked at me and he said, I think you got to stick with pharmacy. I've never heard your band, but.
That's great. Great story. And you know what? I mentioned this earlier, but the word exposure, when you had your aunt and uncle, they exposed you to this pharmacy world. I mean, that was huge because, you know, otherwise, how would you know? Or how would you be introduced to this field as a career? You know, and so that was great for you guys. I mean, to have that connection with your aunt and uncle, you know, but that's a good story with the professor. I hope he didn't hear you play
story.
Say that. That's the only thing worse. That's funny. That's a good story, guys. And so then let's get into this band that you did have a band, Junacy.
Junacy.
Junacy. How do you pronounce it?
Junacy.
Junacy.
And it means heroes. It translates as heroes.
Okay. Yeah. I apologize for not being able to understand your language, but it's completely different than what I'm used to with Italian or
Spanish.
You know. But anyhow, I appreciate it. So this picture here, tell us about this picture.
All right. So at the same time, we're trying to do the pharmacy. Steve and I always, it's funny because we had to strive to get our pharmacy hours because we were playing music behind the scenes. So I remember some of the pharmacy people saying, oh, you know, you got to get your pharmacy stuff, you know, and we're like, well, we got this gig, we got here and this and that. And so, well, right when we were finishing up the Tamburitzins and going in, we started our band Junacy, which was some guys from the Tamburitzins. And we moved on to really start playing a lot of gigs, you know. And I remember, you know, we we played for almost 10 or 12 years, and in 5 or 6 of those years, I remember it being between 40 and 45 gigs a year, almost.
Right.
Where we were playing a lot, and
Respectable,
and we did the full CD that we paid for solely with gig money, and we did it in Soundscape Studios in McKeesport. If you probably know where I'm talking.
I remember
And
the CD too. I remember when you guys made that
we
CD.
made the CD, and I hate to even tell you how much money we spent on it, which was a lot of money in those days. Was I remember almost 18,000 on that.
Mhm.
And just putting it towards it, and Soundscape Studios, and we spent our time to record the parts over and on, recording over top vocals over top other instruments. I remember Steve played like 3 basses on that album. We did vocals on top of each other. I played the Bulgarian tumble to the regular tamburitsa instrument. I played the electric guitar over top on the solo stuff, and acoustic guitars, and it was just really kind of cool where we were in the sound studios to see I think it was Pro Tools, right? I think is what they were using, and to see here's your layered parts over top, and this and that, and
Is this one of the songs from the album?
This is. We'll talk about it. You know how it's football.
Srbije varoš velika, kroz nju teče reka Morava, kraj nje smo se dušo sreli.
Yeah, I thought I had that handy, so I wanted to play.
Oh, that's great. That's great, Vito. Yeah, that song is called Uz Moravu Vetar Duva, which means along the Morava River, the wind is blowing, and so it's a kind of nice song there. But the band led us to different events.
And I have this. I believe this.
Oh, that's the cover.
Yep,
Cover?
that's the cover.
Yeah.
That's taken at Old Europe restaurant in the South Side. You ever go there, Vito? Old Europe that they had?
I don't think so.
We took it at the bar top there, and I even was goofy to make my hair highlighted there, so I thought I was.
Yeah, that puts a timestamp on the photo. So early 2000s.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
But we took it, and we ended up playing even in California at the Opolo Vineyards, which had a connection. We took the band to California, and in that earlier picture that you showed, it was a European artist called Zvonko Bogdan. And so we were even able to back up him and a few other guests that were from Serbia, from over there, that we backed them up when they came to the United States. That's actually at Kennywood Park right now, and we're backing them up. And it was really kind of cool for us to back up artists from over there, and it was like a respectful thing for us. We were like, wow, we're making it here. We're backing them up on their music.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. That's what happens. And, one thing leads to another. And, the idea is take advantage of every opportunity that comes, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you guys, I think you guys did a very good job of that. And I'm happy for you and proud of you for that too.
So, Danny spoke about, and you could back us up on this, Vito, with gigs, there's a lot of travel. Some of the more memorable gigs were, like you mentioned briefly, that Opolo Vineyards in Paso Robles, California. I really enjoyed playing that Grape Stomp where it was at a vineyard. And I, like you, I try to make my own wine, which is not always good wine, but, sometimes, there's a good vintage. But gigs, they bring you to these wonderful places. They allow you to travel. Some of our fondest memories being in the Duquesne University Tamburitsans were traveling the 48 continental states. How many folks can say that they've been in close to every state, within the union? I think that's pretty cool at such a young age. Now, as far as the Founders Award, there is an organization, Tamburitsan Association of America, that they offer awards. Well, not offer awards, but it's a collective group of Tamburitsan musicians and enthusiasts. They have a Hall of Fame. Our grandfather, Danny Kokic, is in that Hall of Fame. It's kind of like the sports Hall of Fames. And, once you reach the Hall of Fame status, that's usually later in life. Hopefully someday Danny and I both will, reach that award. But in the time being, we both had one award called the Founders Award. And what this one was somebody that strived to perpetuate the tambourines in music. Oftentimes one of the prerequisites is that you have to, or criterion, I should say, is that you have to teach a junior tambourine group or some sort of private lessons, do a fair share of arranging music, playing all the gigs, but just generally perpetuating music. So both Danny and I are Founders Award, recipients.
Well, congratulations on that. That's wonderful. Yeah. And
then another thing too that's interesting with the travel, and I've mentioned this before, Vito, is we're third generation Serbian Italian Americans, and I think a really unique thing that we had the opportunity, both of us, and I followed the lead of my brother on this one, was we both took Serbo-Croatian language at University of Pittsburgh.
Okay.
For up to each one of us 6 semesters. So, while going to Duquesne, I always joked and I said, I just need I mentioned before how much I love the math and sciences, but then I started taking college sciences and it was a little bit different. They weren't as exciting as they were in high school. So I needed some entertainment, while my friends were in, music tech, they were in multimedia, all these cool, majors. I took Serbo-Croatian at University of Pittsburgh. And Danny had done this. Both our sisters has done this. And it was a really unique opportunity to really brush up on our Serbian language because Danny will back me up on this. We had a great vocabulary, from our grandparents, to them.
Even the words we shouldn't have known.
Yeah, even those ones. But, oftentimes putting it together as far as like, grammar, that was, it was a little bit tough. So that glued everything together, but that was a really unique opportunity as well. And it kind of connected a lot of the kids that were multi-years at Duquesne, because that was a language program. And we often looked at it as just like a excursion for the week, and half the time we would just do casual conversation. Over coffee. We wouldn't even meet in the language rooms. But the last thing I'll say about that is, I took that course again as relief from science courses, and also as like an homage to our grandparents and learning the language better. But what worked out really funny on this was that's actually how I met my wife. Was she took that same program at Pitt, and she's a University of Pitt graduate, and she's actually a Serbian Bosnian refugee. She came over during the conflict in the 90s, and oftentimes I said, why did you take Serbo-Croatian, as you're fluent, you were born there, you came over whenever you were 7 years old, why did you take this? And her answer simply was, I just wanted an easy A. But she ended up with a husband, so it's a story.
That's a great answer.
Oh, wow.
A lot of students took band and orchestra because they thought it was an easy A.
Well, Steve mentions that about meeting Natasha. I got to segue to my next. I got to talk about the gigs are going great in Pittsburgh, everything. We play a big festival, and Steph and her girlfriends from Michigan, my wife Stephanie, comes out to Pittsburgh to a big festival that our church hosted. Steve and I bartended the first night, and then I meet Stephanie from Troy, Michigan. And I told her, hey, I play in the band. I'm in the band tomorrow night and the next night. I didn't say anything about pharmacy. That wasn't cool. I told her I was a guitar player in the band. That's what I kind of stuck to. And fair enough. Long story short, I end up moving to Michigan, meeting her great family. I knew her uncle from being out here, and the whole family. So she had her huge side, my side from Pittsburgh. we had over 600 people invited to our wedding, and I sat down to Steph and I said, I can only think of one person that I want one time, because our band Unazzi that we were talking about, we did one wedding with you, Vito. You guys were the band, and then we were the other band. I remember this, and it was short, and I remembered it in my head that day, and I said, I want we three for my wedding one day. And I remember telling Steph about this, and Vito, you and Lana were so great. We came, me and Steph were meeting each other. You invited us to your South Park home. You showed me your incredible wine cellar downstairs, and we talked about everything. And I remember saying this to you. You said, and it's funny because I'm putting together some of these other things that you're saying in Shanghai and this and that. This is 2010, and so you said, well, I don't really play with the band anymore, but the band exists and this and that. I said, oh, please, I want you to play with them. Just even if you come, or you and Lana come, just come. I said, and you did. And you and Lana both came, and you made it a whole thing, and we're really honored. And Steph and I, we think the world of you guys. And I found a picture of we three at the wedding, and so.
Well, I have this picture.
That's
at the wedding, right?
Yep, and that's Steve and my mom and my dad. That's Ace. Yes, and
then I have. There's the band. That's we three.
Tim. Yep.
And
and that's Greg there, right, on the saxophone, and that's
Timmy. Timmy playing guitar, and Daniela.
Yeah.
And
you guys were fantastic. I remember you played like a Godfather theme during the dinner. It was like a medley. And man, did a lot of people come up to me, man, who are these guys? They're so good. Oh my goodness. And so you wowed everyone. It was just a fantastic. Thank you for
you're quite welcome. It was a lot of fun. And I think that's the only wedding I played in Detroit. I played weddings all over the place, but that was the first one, and I think the only one that I played in Detroit area. I performed in Detroit, so like I said, with the Sicilian tenors and other artists. But that was great. And you know what? It was a wonderful wedding because you represented, the Italian side of your culture and the Serbian side of your culture. It was just wonderful just to see all of that happening. Steve, you mentioned about the wine, and I have this picture right here. I want to show everybody.
Yeah. So
you had your own wine label too, huh?
I did. Yeah. Actually, one of Stephanie's late uncles designed the wine label there. But what that says is Živeli Mladenci, which means, long live the wedding couple. And what I had done was that was a small wedding, I think, that Danny had. It was around like 400 some people, small wedding. So Danny actually said, hey, it would mean a lot to me, Steve, if we had some of your wine, to put on every table. But the funny thing was that
when you're young, you can accomplish anything. That doesn't scare us when we're young. And Steve, just bring all the wine for the whole darn wedding.
So I said, yeah, I could do that, absolutely. But in doing so, Vito, he wiped out my entire stock of multiple years of wine, and we had great labels on there, designed by Stephanie's late uncle, and. But the funny thing was, some people came up to me, and you as a winemaker know this. Some people, they were like, I was like, hey, how do you like the wine? They're like, oh, it's great. Some people were like, oh, it's great. And then other people were like, yeah, we didn't drink that wine. That was pretty bad wine. and that's why, because, different years, different different vintages, you're going to get different results.
But I always said the wine is only as good as the grapes, and the grapes are only as good as the growing season. And that really impacts what you're going to have at the end of the day with a bottle of wine or a glass of wine, And so every year is different, and you never know, it could be anything from A to Z, right? Yeah. That's awesome. And I remember there was a time we started using labels, but we went through the wine so fast it wasn't worth putting them on.
It wasn't
worth it. Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Lots of fun. How about this? This a family. Now this is a great picture because that's all four of you kids. And I remember, of course, like I said, I did not have Sonia as a student, but I knew her well enough because she was really good friends with Nina Danchenko.
Yeah.
And Nina was always mentioning her, and Fred was always mentioning her being over their house, et cetera, et cetera. Melina I had, and of course you two boys, that's a nice picture, all four of you. And all four of you, Duquesne University Tamburitzans.
Mm-hmm.
That's
And Duquesne
awesome.
graduates, yes.
And Duquesne graduates.
Right.
Well,
We're
that's
proud of our alma
I
mater.
just assumed that you were all graduated from Duquesne. It wouldn't be any other way with Capuzzis. I know that. Okay, so I wanted to see. There's another picture. What about this? So this young lady here, her name is Marina.
Yes, Steve, you want to talk about Marina?
Absolutely, yes.
Who is she?
She is an opera singer. She's a composer. She's a pianist as well, and she has global. She's known all over the world as far as her composing music, especially amongst Serbian music. So she has a St. Nicholas Day party. It's one of those gigs that we usually play every year around the same time. It's right around in accordance to the Orthodox calendar for St. Nicholas Day, which is December 19th. That's a little bit, different than the conventional calendar of St. Nicholas Day being around December 6th, I believe. But that's her family's Slava, and usually we play that. And she usually has an aspect where, we play light cocktail music, but she also incorporates us into a show that she does. And she's a performer. She's been featured on PBS programs, both in Michigan, as well as she spent time in Florida as well, Southwest Florida. So on their PBS programs as well. And, it's a great standard
for her about 5-6 years now.
Yeah, well, 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
And she invites us, and we have a hoot.
I have a very short video with her. Let me play this for the audience here.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful piano that she plays. It's Bergdorfer, I think it's called. So a very
phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's really, that was a Russian song called Ochi Chorne that she was going to go.
Dark Eyes.
Yeah, I played that on the accordion when I was like 7.
Yeah, exactly. Part of the program, Vito. Dark Eyes.
Yeah, but we have a hoot with that.
That piano, was it a Bosendorfer?
Bosendorfer.
That's it. That's the name.
So it's a German piano. One time, I'll just tell you a quick story. So I was on tour with this singer from Italy, and we were doing a concert in Vienna, and at the Stadthall, which means the State Hall. And I got a call one day, and this is back when I still had a flip phone. Imagine this.
Oh, yeah.
And I was sitting in my office at the high school, and I was sitting there, and my phone rings, and I don't recognize this number at all, but it like had a lot of digits, and I thought I better answer this. I didn't know who it was, So I answered it, and the guy, he says, "Is this Vito?" I said, "Yes, it is." He said, "This is Carl Haas. I'm the promoter for the concert you're coming this weekend into Vienna." He says, "And I have a question." I said, "Sure." And he said, "On your rider of your contract, you have a Steinway D. And if you can't get a Steinway D, we prefer a Yamaha piano, a grand." And I said, yeah. He said, "Well, would a Bosendorfer 250 be okay?" And I said, "That would be just fine." So I'm aware, to me, like the Steinway is like the Cadillac.
Yeah.
The Bosendorfer's like the Rolls Royce. Okay.
Right. That's a good
it's
reference.
an amazing instrument. And now, of course, the Italians make a piano called fazioli, which is another amazing instrument. And anyway, but this Bosendorfer, when I showed up there in the afternoon and I'm getting all set up and all things, and I sat down and nobody in the theater. And it was beautiful, and all red velvet seats and everything. And I'm sitting there and I started playing this piano. I thought, how can I cut this up and put it in my suitcase to take it home? So that's you were talking about Marina playing that Bosendorfer. That's an amazing.
And that's in her home.
Really
that's in her home, Tito. She has that right in her parlor there.
Best of the best. Yeah. No question about that. And so you might want to talk about some of these other things that you have, and I have some other pictures.
Yep.
Yes. So this is the St. Nicholas Serbian Orthodox Tamburitsins.
This
and
3 months ago. This just happened, this picture.
Yeah. So I think what I want to most and proudly talk about is it's a Tamburitsin orchestra and folklore group, singing, dancing, and playing. But what I really am proud of is that I am the director for the beginner group. Yeah. And as mentioned in the, the intro, I've been doing this for over 10 years. But what was funny was I took a little bit of a sabbatical until this past year. And, just to raise my 2 children. And I told them whenever, I was leaving, 10 years ago, I said, I'll be back, hopefully, God willing, to, teach my children. So in that picture on right there, you'll see the youngest, or I'd say the smallest accordionist right in the center there. He's leaning back. He's spreading out those bellows real far. That is my son,
right
Philip.
by the upright bass, where the upright bass goes.
How do you pronounce his name?
That's Philip.
Philip. Okay.
Yeah. So he's playing there, and he's playing accordion, and I brought a wave of accordion players in this past year. So you'll see them. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then there's also a young boy there. He's kind of a wingman. I think he's an aspiring accordionist. So we put him right next to the. Accordion is alive and well and cool. They like to, these second graders now going into 3rd grade. They treat it almost as like a club. So whenever we have practice on Monday nights, they sit in their section, the accordion players. So it's like you need that inspiration. And as we had mentioned before, or you mentioned, you had, that hard, teaching style or a teacher that would really encourage, folks to play. You kind of needed that. And I had that with my grandfather, and mine and Danny's grandfather, to the effect of, he was mostly a guitarist and tamburitsin musician. But what was interesting about him was, in his 90s, and I was in high school and taking accordion lessons off of Donna Jacobs, I still needed that support, from my family to kind of get me going. So my grandfather in his 90s, he's like, I think I'm going to learn how to play accordion. And I would take my accordion lesson first on a Friday afternoon, about 3 o'clock. It would happen right after school. And then my grandfather would take one right after off of Donna Jacobs. Yeah.
So now he was a string guy his whole life. Then all of a sudden at 90, hey, I'm going to learn how to play the accordion.
Good for him. Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, I mean, that encapsulates the fact that, once a musician, always a musician.
Yeah. Lifelong learner.
He did it until his 90s. My brother and I were on our way. We like to think, knocking on wood, that we have this path of continuing to play together and doing something that we love with this fellowship.
I have this picture too here I want to show.
Yeah.
And this is Danny's.
So that's so Steve, he was there with his accordion. We have a folklore group in Detroit here, and where I go, Ravanica. Those are my 2 boys there in the middle there. They are dancing like a shepherd's dance there. They wear that. That's an area from Serbia called Davlačko. And so they're doing a dance there for their folklore. The thing about that's different out here, and for me, is they don't have music like they have in Pittsburgh. So a lot of the folk ensembles that I am affiliated with here in Detroit don't have the music portion. They do mostly folklore dancing.
I see. Well, I have two more videos. One is really short, and this is Steve singing. Tell me about this here video that I'm going to play, because I think you have it called, is it Zenica Blues?
Yes. So the Zenica Blues, that's where my wife is from, Zenica, Bosnia.
Ah.
And this is just a fun little song, you know, and I think a good story about this is I actually had the help of Timmy Milko, who DJ'd my wedding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Start off with Elton John's "Can You Feel the Love Tonight?"
Yeah.
The first dance, and everybody, and then we approach the dance floor, and everyone's like, "Oh, great! Here's another first dance." Very boring.
Oh, yeah.
Elton John, you know, from The Lion King.
This is
And
great.
then what Timmy did was he incorporated this record scratch, and then we went into this like two-step Zenica Blues. And this is about the song in Bosnia, and it's just a real funny song. Really,
Everyone went crazy.
All right.
but everybody, it caught everyone off guard, and then we went and did a dance to this song. But this video that you'll play, that's
I think
me
I used a little bit of this in the very first montage that I used, but let's play this. Short video, but it was good.
Yeah,
Little 2-beat, like almost like a polka style beat.
it was almost like a polka, and that's what we did as our first dance, you know. And,
So you
and it
went
caught
in
everyone
from
off guard.
Can You Feel the Love Tonight? Is that what you said to this? Yeah.
To
And nobody expected it. It was like he threw everybody off. Like we were like, wow.
Well, guys, I have one more video I want to show, and then after this, if you want to comment on it, you can. And then if you have anything else that you want to add, you're welcome to. But I want to, before I let you go, I want to play this video here.
Yeah, that's that's my wife. That's Eli and Peter. My voice. Yep. Oh yeah, there we go. Great wife. This is a fun.
That's awesome.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. And I wanted to ask you, in the very, very first song of that video, there was a guy carrying the flag. What was the significance of that, carrying that flag?
That was every part of the Serbian Orthodox culture is you have a saint day that you honor. And so not only families pass along their saint day, ours is St. George or Georgevdan on May 6th, the church has one that I go to in Detroit called St. Lazarus, and they actually have their saint day that was celebrated that day. So it's like a tradition of the saint day, and they hired just that little trio that I played with there at that event, and that guy was he's from there, and he's just so proud of the culture and proud of it that represents, you know, Serbia and a great Serbian tradition. So I think him just, you know, waving that flag is just part of, you know,
celebrating that saint day.
Not a lot different from the Italian culture.
Yeah, you know,
talking about saint days and how they celebrate them and things like that. That's very similar. So that's awesome, guys. It's been wonderful having you on the show, and you know, I wish you both a lot of continued success. Is there anything else you'd like to add before you close it up here?
Vito, it is actually absolutely our pleasure to be on here with you. We're so honored, you know, it from West Mifflin beginnings and coming back and just our realization of just, you were there at the, you know, you were helping us, fostering us, moving us along, and being so, and then we realized how amazing of a career and things, and how talented you are just behind. And then it just, our mouth is still dry. Let me talk about one thing with my mouth dropping open. I remember I had a band rehearsal. We had this, and we're trying to learn this song. Okay. And I had this little tape recorder, and I was in 11th grade or something, and we couldn't learn this riff for this song right before it hit the chorus. Bum, bum, ba, da, dum, bum, ba, dum, ba, da, ba. And I bring in my little tape box, and I brought it into you. And I brought it into your office, and I said, we can't figure this out for anything. We just can't figure this. And he says, and you said, play it, just play it. Okay. And I play, and then you said, you stopped and you said, play it one more time. And I played it one more time. You took the paper and you wrote the riff right away, right off of listening two times. And my mouth dropped like this. We spent an hour. We couldn't figure this riff. And you did it. You were so talented to just write it. You heard it and did it. It was, and we were just so amazed at how, you know, thank you for being there for us, for supporting us. Thanks for having us on the program. Thanks for playing my wedding, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. A lot of great times, guys. A lot of great times. And I appreciate so much your dedication to your culture and your heritage, because I was that way with my culture and my heritage, and I still am, you know, but I think that's important in life, you know, to keep those traditions going as much as you can.
Music is a life's work, and that's what Jedno Kokic told us, and you can always learn more, get better, take another genre on, and that's what's really cool.
Yeah. Well, guys,
I can say in closing is I echo everything Danny said. The only thing I could say is thank you, Vito. Keep bringing the great content in your program, your weekly program. Thank you so much for making us, you know, your 29th installment. This has been a pleasure, and I wanted to just thank you for, you know, everything you're doing with this program.
You're very welcome. It's my pleasure. My pleasure, guys. And again, great to have you on to see you guys and have you on the program. All right, you have a good evening. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, Vito.
Thank you, Vito.
See ya.
Take care. All right. And there you have it. Another Memories of a Musician, another episode. As I play a little bit of music. Yeah. Steve and Danny Capuzzi, what a career they've had. And just love, you know, the fact that they keep their heritage so close to their hip. I love it. I can listen to that music all day too. So let's talk about what's going on looking ahead. I like to take first a moment to thank all of my guests that I've had since our launch, which was January 15th of this year. And I'd also like to thank our audience, especially those of you who watch each and every episode. And some of you are not musicians, some are, but many of you are not musicians, but you are enjoying, as you relate to me, enjoying hearing these stories and memories and journeys of all these special musicians. So your loyalty is very much appreciated. And looking ahead, I decided to take the month of August off from my podcast because, first of all, I'm going to be traveling to see my family up north. And the next episode of Memories of Musician will take place on Wednesday, September 3rd, 2025 at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Will feature a former professor of mine from Duquesne University, Raymond DeFade Sr. Now, earlier in this podcast series, I had his son, his oldest son, Ray Jr., who was a drummer and was a drummer for We3 for several years. Ray Jr., and now his father, Ray DeFade Sr., is going to be on the program. He's another, I want to say, Pittsburgh jazz legend as a player, an arranger, and an educator. So be sure to tune in on Wednesday, September 3rd, for the next episode of Memories of a Musician featuring Raymond DeFade Sr. And if you want to go back this month when I'm off and we're not doing any live shows, if you want to go back, you can see every episode by going to vitodesalvo.com. Go to, on the menu, go to Memories of a Musician. In every episode, there's a link to every episode to my YouTube channel, and you can watch every episode in the event you missed any. So I want to just thank you again, and you have a great evening. Thank you so much.